Captain Ethan stood on the bridge of the Artemis, staring at the view screen. A blue-green planet filled the screen, uncharted and mysterious. The crew had been scanning the area for days, hoping to find something valuable, but this planet was different. It had been missed by every survey team that came before. The signals it sent were strange, unlike anything they had encountered before. "Captain, we've detected a signal," said Lieutenant Jordan. His voice filled with a mix of excitement and concern. Ethan turned, his brow furrowing. "A signal? From where?" "From the surface of the planet. It's faint, but it's there. We can't quite make it out, but it's definitely not natural." Ethan paused for a moment, then made a decision. "Prepare the landing party. We're going down to see what's going on." The crew scrambled to get ready, and soon they were descending to the planet in the shuttle. The atmosphere was thick, but breathable, and the land below was a strange mix of dense jungles and rocky hills. Ethan's heart raced with the excitement of the unknown. As the shuttle landed, the ground trembled slightly under the ship's weight. Ethan and his crew stepped out, scanning their surroundings. The air was thick with the scent of strange flowers and unfamiliar plants, making it hard to focus on anything. But there was something else in the air, something different. "Captain, look over there," Jordan said, pointing to a small clearing in the distance, through the trees. Ethan could see a figure standing there. At first, he thought it might be one of the locals, but as they drew closer, he realized it was an alien woman. She was tall, with skin that shimmered under the sunlight, and her hair flowed like liquid silver. Her eyes were dark, and they locked onto Ethan's as soon as he stepped into the clearing. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. The woman didn't speak right away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, her gaze never leaving him. It was as if she was studying him, trying to understand him. "I am Lyra," she finally said, her voice soft yet carrying an air of authority. "And you are different." Ethan took a step forward, his crew standing back, unsure of what to do. "Different? How so?" Lyra stepped closer, and as she did, Ethan felt something strange and almost overwhelming sensation. It wasn't just her presence, it was the way she moved, the way she looked at him. He felt exposed, as if she could see inside him, far deeper than any person ever could. "You carry something with you," Lyra said, her voice a mere whisper now. "A desire." Ethan blinked, his mind racing. Desire? What was she talking about? He had never met this woman before. How could she know anything about him? She continued, stepping even closer now. "I can smell it, your desire. It's all around you." A strange shiver ran down Ethan's spine. He didn't know how to respond. Was she reading his mind? Or was it something else entirely? Lyra's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, Ethan thought he saw something like sympathy in them. "You don't understand yet, but you will." Ethan felt a strange pull towards her, but he didn't move. "What do you mean?" he asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. "I can sense more than most," she replied, her eyes never leaving his. "I can smell emotions, desires, and right now, yours is so strong." The words hung in the air between them, and Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. Was this woman really telling him that she could smell his deepest emotions? That seemed impossible. He shook his head, trying to push the thought away. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, though a small part of him wondered if maybe she was telling the truth. Lyra smiled, a small, knowing smile, before she took another step forward. "I think you do, but you're afraid to face it." Ethan stood frozen in place, his breath caught in his throat. This woman, this alien, was telling him things no one else could know, and for the first time in a long time, he felt completely vulnerable. But there was something else, something that drew him to her. He wasn't sure what it was, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was going to change everything. "Come with me," Lyra said, her voice softer now. "Let me show you what I mean." Ethan glanced back at his crew, who stood silent and confused. "Stay here," he told them. "I'll be back soon." Lyra led him deeper into the jungle, her movements graceful and fluid as they walked. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pulled into something much bigger than he had anticipated. Something that might not only change his life, but the course of history itself. Ethan followed Lyra through the thick jungle, the air thick with the smell of strange plants and flowers. He tried to focus on the path ahead, but his mind kept drifting back to her words. I can smell your desire. The idea seemed impossible, yet something about her presence made him question everything he thought he knew about reality. Lyra moved gracefully, almost as if she was gliding through the dense underbrush. Her silver hair shone in the dim light, and her dark eyes remained focused ahead. Every step she took seemed deliberate, like she knew exactly where she was going. Ethan, on the other hand, stumbled every few steps, his mind still reeling from what had just happened. You still don't understand, do you? Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts, soft but firm. Ethan looked at her, his confusion clear on his face. I don't know what you mean, he admitted, his voice uncertain. How can you smell desire? Is that even possible? Lyra stopped and turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in the way she looked at him that made his heart beat faster. You have no idea what my species is capable of, do you? Ethan shook his head. I know nothing about your kind, just what we were briefed on your planet, your people. But that doesn't explain how you can smell emotions. That's impossible. Lyra smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was as though she was enjoying his confusion. You humans believe in what you can see and touch, but there is so much more to this world than your senses allow you to experience. She took a deep breath, and as she did, Ethan noticed her eyes briefly closing, almost as if she was tasting the air around them. I don't understand, Ethan said again. He was starting to feel overwhelmed, his head spinning with thoughts he couldn't control. You will, she replied quietly. It's just a matter of time. They continued walking, the silence stretching between them, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Ethan couldn't help but notice how the world around them seemed to be alive in a way he had never experienced. The plants, the air, even the ground beneath their feet seemed to vibrate with an energy he couldn't quite grasp. After a while, Lyra stopped again. This time, they had reached a clearing. It was surrounded by tall, ancient trees, their branches twisting and reaching toward the sky like giant hands. In the center of the clearing was a small, clear pool of water. The light from the sun filtered through the leaves above, casting a soft glow over the scene. Ethan stood still, taking in the beauty of the place. There was something peaceful about it, yet at the same time, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was different, like the entire planet was watching him, waiting for something to happen. Lyra stepped into the center of the clearing and motioned for Ethan to follow her. Come closer, she said, her voice more inviting now. Let me show you. Ethan hesitated for a moment, but curiosity won out. He stepped forward and approached the pool, trying to ignore the tension that still buzzed in the air. As he got closer, he could feel the pull of something deep within him, something that was urging him to trust her. Lyra stood at the edge of the water, her eyes closed once more. She raised her arms slightly, and the air around them seemed to shift. Ethan blinked, unsure of what he was seeing. The space around them shimmered faintly, as though reality itself was bending. Your desires, Lyra said softly, they are not just thoughts. They are energy. I can feel them. Taste them. She paused, and Ethan could see the intensity in her eyes as she opened them again. You've been running from yours, haven't you? Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. He wanted to deny it, but the truth hit him harder than he expected. Yes, he had been running. From his fears, from his loneliness, from parts of himself he didn't understand. But to have someone, an alien, see it all, feel it all, was more than he could bear. Lyra's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Ethan thought he saw something like pity in her eyes. But before he could say anything, she continued. I can help you understand it, she said. I can help you embrace it. Ethan stepped back slightly, unsure of what to make of her offer. How? By what? Making me feel things I don't want to feel? No, Lyra said, shaking her head. I won't make you feel anything, but I can help you face your desires. to accept them as part of who you are. And once you do that, you'll have more control over them. Ethan stared at her, unsure of what to say. Part of him wanted to run, to push her away. But another part of him, when he didn't want to acknowledge, was curious. He had spent so much of his life trying to avoid his own emotions, trying to bury them beneath his duty as a captain. Could it be possible that facing them could actually give him power? Lyra stepped closer, her presence more intense now. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, she said gently. But when you are, I'll be here to guide you. Ethan looked at her, his heart racing in his chest. There was something out Lyra, something that made him feel like he was on the edge of discovering something new, something important. And though a part of him still feared what was happening, another part of him felt a strange sense of hope. As the sun began to set, casting the clearing in soft orange light, Ethan finally nodded. Okay, he said quietly. I'll trust you. Lyra smiled, a smile that seemed to light up her entire face. Good, she said. Now, let me show you the way. The days following Ethan's decision to trust Lyra were a blur. They spent most of their time together, exploring the planet's strange landscapes, and each time, Lyra would guide him deeper into understanding his own emotions. It was an unusual experience, nothing like anything Ethan had ever encountered before. Her presence had become almost impossible to ignore, and the connection between them grew stronger with each passing hour. Ethan could feel at the pull of something deep inside him, something he kept buried for years. It wasn't just the bond with Lyra, it was something much more personal. He hadn't realized how much he had been running from his own emotions until now. Every time they were alone, he felt vulnerable, as if she could see all of him, the parts he kept hidden from the world. It wasn't just her ability to sense his desires. It was her understanding of them. She never judged him for what she sensed. Instead, she quietly encouraged him to face it. Ethan couldn't help but notice how her eyes followed him when he moved, how her attention was so focused that it made him feel like the center of the universe. Every time she looked at him, a shiver ran down his spine. Her gaze was different from anyone else's, and it wasn't just because she was alien. It was because of how deeply she could see into him. One evening, they sat by the edge of the clearing, near the pool, the sky turning a soft pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. The air was cool, and a light breeze rustled the leaves above them. Ethan's eyes were fixed on the distant stars, but his mind was far away, tangled in thoughts of Lyra. You're thinking again, Lyra said, her voice low, almost teasing. Ethan turned to her, surprised. You can tell, she smiled, her lips curving just slightly. I can feel it. Your mind races when you're uncertain. Ethan laughed softly, feeling exposed once again. I'm not used to feeling like this. Lyra's expression softened. She leaned closer, her presence sending a wave of warmth through him. Feeling what, exactly? Ethan looked at her, his heart hammering in his chest. There was something about the way she looked at him that made him feel both exposed and safe. Like I don't have control over anything. Like you can see everything inside me. Her gaze grew intense, and for a moment, Ethan thought he could feel her presence, almost like a touch on his skin. You think I don't feel the same, she whispered. I see you. Ethan, I see all of you. Her words sent a thrill through him. There was no anger or judgment in her voice, only understanding. Something he had never experienced from anyone before. And that scared him more than he cared to admit. I'm not used to being vulnerable, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I've always kept my feelings under control, but now, with you, it feels different. I don't know how to handle it. Lyra's eyes softened as she reached out, gently brushing her fingers against his hand. Ethan's breath caught at the contact. It was light, barely a touch, but it felt like electricity shot through his body. He wanted to pull away, but he couldn't. Something inside him made him want to stay, to lean into the warmth she offered without fear. You don't have to handle it, Lyra said softly. Not with me. I can help you understand it. You don't have to be afraid of it anymore. Ethan's mind was spinning. He had never felt so conflicted in his life. He wanted to trust her, but a small voice inside him warned him to stay cautious. Yet, every time she spoke, Every time she came closer, it felt like his resistance was fading. She wasn't like anyone else he had met, and that frightened him just as much as it excited him. I don't know what to do with all this, Ethan admitted, his voice quiet. Lyra gave him a small smile, and for the first time, Ethan noticed a hint of something in her expression, something like empathy. You don't need to do anything except be yourself. You've been fighting your own emotions for so long, but you don't have to anymore. Her words lingered in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Ethan could feel his heart racing. She was right, he had been fighting his emotions for years, always putting duty first, always bearing his personal feelings. But now, sitting next to Lyra, something inside him was beginning to change. Maybe he didn't have to keep everything locked inside. Maybe there was a way to embrace his emotions without losing control. But was he ready? He didn't know. Every part of him screamed to pull back, to remain in control, to stay safe. Yet, the other part of him, the part that was beginning to trust Lyra, wanted to let go. Lyra reached out again, her fingers brushing his arm gently. I won't force you to do anything you don't want to, Ethan, she said, her voice tender. But you need to understand that the only way to find peace is by accepting who you truly are. All of you. Ethan closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had been living his life by rules that kept him from feeling anything too deeply. But what if she was right? What if the key to freedom, to peace, was letting go of those rules? He opened his eyes and looked at her. There was something in her eyes, a depth that made him want to trust her completely. Okay, he said softly. I'll try. Lyra smiled, her eyes lighting up with something like relief. You won't regret it. As they sat in silence, the weight of Ethan's decision hung in the air. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he felt like he was on the verge of something important, something that could change his life forever. And though the fear still lingered in the back of his mind, Ethan couldn't deny that a part of him was eager to see where the strange, mysterious connection with Lyra would lead. The days on the alien planet had begun to blur together. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he had felt this conflicted. Every day, Lyra guided him deeper into understanding himself, helping him face the emotions he had kept locked away for so long. But with each lesson, each moment spent together, a part of him became more drawn to her. It was more than just her strange ability to sense emotions, it was the way she understood him, in ways no one else had, and it scared him. Ethan tried to focus on his duties as captain of the Artemis, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Lyra. Whenever he was around her, it was hard to think straight. It was as if she had the power to turn his world upside down, to make him feel things he wasn't sure he was ready to face. One afternoon, Lyra led him to a high cliff overlooking a vast, sparkling ocean. The sound of the waves crashing below was calming, but Ethan couldn't shake the tension in the air between them. As they stood at the edge, the wind tugged at their clothes, and the sun cast a golden glow over the water. You seem distant, Lyra observed, her voice soft but knowing. Ethan sighed and turned to face her. I don't know what to think anymore, Lyra. You've opened up a part of me that I've spent years trying to ignore. It's hard to accept that I've been so out of touch with my own feelings. Lyra stepped closer to him, her eyes locking onto his with a calm intensity. You've spent your life putting duty first, ignoring your desires, your needs. But now, you can see that they are a part of who you are. You can't run from them forever. Ethan looked away, his gaze drifting to the horizon. I'm not sure I can face them. It's not that simple. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and comforting. It's never easy to face the parts of ourselves that we hide, but it's the only way to truly live. He felt her words settle into him, resonating with something deep inside. But even as he felt the truth of them, fear gnawed at him. What if facing his desires meant losing control? What if he couldn't handle what came next? I don't know if I'm ready to let go, he admitted, his voice quiet. Lyra smiled gently, her fingers brushing his arm. That's okay. You don't have to be ready yet, but you have to start somewhere, and you've already started. Her words were like a soft whisper in the wind, but they held a power that Ethan couldn't ignore. He had already taken the first step, he had trusted her. allowed himself to feel things he hadn't wanted to feel, but that didn't mean he was ready to fully embrace it. The thought of letting go of his carefully controlled world was terrifying. "Do you ever feel afraid?" Ethan asked, looking back at her. Lyra's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly. "Of course, I've felt fear, just like you. But fear doesn't control me. It's part of being alive." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to push past the tightness in his chest. He wasn't used to opening up like this, especially not with someone he had just met. But Lyra was different. She made him feel safe, like he didn't have to carry the weight of the universe on his shoulders. "I just don't want to lose myself in this," he said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "You won't," Lyra assured him. "You'll only find yourself. The real you, the one you've been hiding from." Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing something in them that he couldn't quite describe. It wasn't just understanding, it was connection. He felt like she truly saw him, not just as the captain of a ship or the leader of a crew, but as a person with dreams, desires, and fears. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered. Lyra stepped closer, her presence overwhelming in the best way possible. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here with you." Her words were a quiet promise, but they felt like a lifeline. For the first time since arriving on this planet, Ethan felt a weight lifting from his chest. It wasn't gone completely, but for the first time, he didn't feel completely alone in carrying it. "You've already taken the hardest step," Lyra said softly. "Now it's time to let go of your fears and trust yourself." Ethan stood there, the wind tussling his hair, his heart beating faster than usual. He didn't know what the future held, but standing next to Lyra, he realized that he didn't have to face it alone. The connection between them was undeniable, and though it frightened him, it also gave him strength. "Okay," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I'll try." Lyra smiled, and for the first time, Ethan saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something that was both tender and powerful. "That's all I ask." The silence between them stretched, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like an understanding, an unspoken promise. They didn't need to say anything more. Ethan knew that he had made a choice to trust, to let go, and to embrace the unknown. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with vibrant colors, Ethan felt something inside him shift. It wasn't a dramatic change, but it was enough. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he felt ready to face whatever came his way. And for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of the waves and the quiet hum of the planet's energy. In that moment, Ethan realized that the path ahead wasn't as frightening as he had once thought. With Lyra by his side, he could face anything. Ethan had been on the alien planet for what felt like weeks now, though it had only been a few days. Each day, he found himself more drawn to Lyra and the world she had introduced him to. But with every new feeling, every new discovery about himself, came an unexpected challenge. The closer he grew to Lyra, the more the rest of the crew seemed to distance themselves. They didn't understand what was happening between them, and though Ethan tried to explain, words never seemed enough. One afternoon, as they stood in the clearing near the pool, Ethan noticed the crew's eyes on him more than usual. It was subtle, but he could feel the tension in the air. They had grown suspicious of his time spent with Lyra. Captain Jordan, his second in command, had asked him twice that week if everything was all right, but Ethan couldn't explain it to him not. Yet, at least, he wasn't sure he fully understood it himself. Lyra, sensing his discomfort, gave him a gentle nudge. "Something is bothering you." Ethan shook his head, forcing a smile. "It's nothing, just some tension with the crew." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You're not telling me everything." Ethan sighed, looking away. "It's just, they don't understand. They don't know what I've been learning here, with you." Lyra stood beside him, watching the crew through the trees in the distance. "They don't understand because they can't feel what you feel. They don't know what it's like to sense another's desires, to feel what you feel." She paused, her voice softening. "It's hard for them to accept what they don't understand." Ethan turned to her, meeting her gaze. "And what about you?" Do you understand what's happening between us? Lyra didn't immediately respond. Instead, she looked at him thoughtfully. I know what I feel, and I know that it's different. But that doesn't scare me, Ethan. It's part of who we are. This connection, it's real. Ethan could hear the sincerity in her voice, but he wasn't sure if he was ready to accept it. I just don't know if I can handle this. It's all too much. Lyra placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. You're handling it better than you think. You're allowing yourself to feel, and that's more than most people ever do. Ethan looked down at her hand, the weight of her words settling in his mind. He had spent his entire life controlling his emotions, keeping them buried beneath layers of duty and responsibility. But now, with Lyra, he had to face them, and it terrified him. The sound of footsteps interrupted their conversation, and Ethan turned to see Captain Jordan approaching. His expression was serious, his eyes narrowed. Ethan, can we talk? Jordan asked. Ethan nodded and motioned for Lyra to step back. He didn't want to put her in a difficult position with the crew. Sure, he said, walking a few steps away from Lyra. As they moved further from the clearing, Jordan wasted no time. What's going on between you and her, Ethan? I've never seen you this distracted, and I can't help but notice how you've been spending all your time with her. I need to know what's going on. You're the captain, and we need you focused. Ethan's stomach twisted. He had expected this conversation, but that didn't make it any easier. There's nothing to worry about, Jordan, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm still the captain. Nothing's changed. Jordan crossed his arms, his gaze sharp. I'm not so sure about that. You've changed, Ethan, and I think we all know why. I've seen the way you look at her. You're letting her get inside your head, and I don't like it. Ethan clenched his fist at his sides, fighting the frustration building inside him. You don't understand, Jordan. You can't. She's helping me. She's helping me see things I've been running from for years. Jordan's face softened slightly, but his tone remained firm. I don't care what she's helping you with. You've got a crew to lead. We need you. Ethan, not her. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He didn't know how to explain what Lyra had helped him realize. He didn't know how to make Jordan understand that he wasn't losing control. He was gaining something he never knew he needed. After a long moment, Jordan spoke again, quieter now. I just want you to be careful, Ethan. Don't lose yourself in this. Ethan nodded slowly. I'll be careful. As Jordan walked away, Ethan turned back toward the clearing, his mind swirling. He felt torn between the life he had known and the strange new world Lyra had introduced him to. Part of him wanted to pull away from her to distance himself from the emotions that had begun to overwhelm him. But another part of him, a part he couldn't ignore, wanted to stay. He wanted to learn more, to understand why this connection with Lyra felt so right. Lyra was waiting for him in the clearing, her eyes calm. But there was a question in them as she watched him approach. What did he say? Ethan sighed, his shoulders heavy. He doesn't understand. He's worried about me, about us. Lyra stepped closer, her presence a quiet comfort. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone but yourself, and you don't have to make any decisions right now. I don't know what to do, Ethan admitted, his voice strained. I feel like I'm caught between two worlds, the one I know and the one you're showing me. Lyra placed a hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingers. You don't have to choose between them. You can have both, but only if you trust yourself, only if you let go of the fear holding you back. Ethan closed his eyes, letting her words sink in. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a choice. He didn't have to give up everything he knew to explore something new. He just had to trust himself and her. As the wind rustled through the trees, Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. But with Lyra by his side, maybe it wasn't so heavy after all. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everything was changing. The air on the alien planet seemed heavier now, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. Lyra's presence was no longer just comforting. It was something he couldn't ignore. Every time she was near, his heart raced, and his thoughts became tangled. He had been trying to deny it for days, but now there was no escaping it. He was in love with her. They sat together by the pool again, the moonlight casting a soft glow on the water. Ethan watched the ripples in the water, his thoughts a jumble of confusion and longing. He had never felt so conflicted. His mind kept telling him that this was wrong, that his duty as captain should come first, but his heart kept telling him that this was something real, something he couldn't ignore. Lyra sat beside him, her presence calm and steady. She had always been able to sense his emotions, to see through the walls he had built around himself. But now, Ethan wondered if she could see how lost he truly felt. He didn't know how to navigate this new reality, this strange bond that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. "You've been quiet," Lyra said softly, her voice breaking through his thoughts. Ethan turned to her, his heart pounding in his chest. "I don't know what's happening anymore, Lyra," he confessed. "I thought I had everything figured out, but now I feel like I'm losing myself." Lyra's eyes softened as she reached out to gently touch his arm. "You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. It's just not easy. The things you've been hiding, your fears, your desires, they're part of you. But you don't have to keep running from them." Ethan shook his head. "I don't know if I can face them. I don't know if I can be the person I need to be for my crew and still be this person." Lyra smiled gently. "You can be both. You don't have to choose between your duty and your heart. But you have to trust yourself, Ethan. You have to believe that you're strong enough to handle both." The words hit him harder than he expected. For so long, he had kept his emotions in check, buried beneath layers of duty and responsibility. But now, with Lyra beside him, he couldn't hide anymore. He had to face the truth. He had allowed himself to care for her in ways he hadn't planned, ways that felt both freeing and terrifying. "I don't know if I'm ready to let go of everything I've built," he admitted, his voice shaky. "I've spent my whole life focused on being the captain, on keeping control. And now I don't know what's happening. I'm scared." Lyra leaned closer, her hand resting on his. "Fear is natural, but it doesn't have to control you. You've spent so long protecting yourself, keeping your emotions locked away. But emotions aren't your enemy, Ethan. They're part of being human." Ethan looked down at their joined hands, the weight of her words sinking in. He had spent so much of his life avoiding his own feelings, thinking they would make him weak. But Lyra was right. Emotions weren't weaknesses. They were what made him who he was. They were what made him human. "I'm scared of losing control," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's gaze never wavered. "You won't lose control. You'll gain it, but only if you face the truth of what you're feeling. Only if you let yourself feel." Ethan stared at her, his heart pounding. The tension between them had been building for days, and now, in the quiet of the night, he knew that he couldn't keep hiding from it. He had to face what he felt, not just for her, but for himself. He couldn't keep living in fear of his own desires. "You've already made the first step," Lyra continued, her voice gentle. "You've trusted me. You've opened up to me in ways you've never done with anyone, and that's powerful." Ethan looked at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of fear and gratitude. He had never allowed anyone to see him the way she did, never allowed anyone to see through his walls. And yet, here he was, feeling things he hadn't thought possible. "But what about the crew?" he asked, his voice full of doubt. "What if they don't understand? What if they turn against me?" Lyra's eyes sparkled with understanding. "They will come to understand, Ethan. But you can't live your life trying to please everyone else. You have to live for yourself, for what feels right to you." Ethan sat in silence, the weight of her words settling in his chest. For so long, he had focused on the expectations of others, his crew, his mission, his duty. But now, with Lyra beside him, he realized that he had neglected the most important person in his life, himself. "I've been so focused on doing what's right for everyone else, I forgot what's right for me," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. Lyra smiled, her gaze warm and reassuring. "It's never too late to find your own path, Ethan, and you don't have to do it alone. I'll be here with you every step of the way." Ethan nodded, the fear inside him starting to fade. He didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, he felt like he didn't need to have everything figured out. He just needed to trust himself, trust Lyra, and take the next step forward. As they sat together by the pool, the sound of the water calming and steady, Ethan realized that he was finally ready to face the truth. He was ready to embrace his emotions, his desires, and the connection he shared with Lyra. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. Ethan stood at the edge of the clearing, staring at the night sky. The stars above were bright, their light flickering like distant memories. He had always found comfort in the stars, a sense of direction in their steady glow. But tonight, the familiar calm had been replaced with uncertainty. The weight of his choices pressed down on him, heavy and unyielding. Lyra stood beside him, her presence a constant reassurance. She had become more than just a guide. She had become a part of him, a part he didn't want to lose. But the world around them, the crew, the mission, everything he had known was pulling at him. He was a captain, a leader, a man with a duty. And yet, with Lyra, he had found something more, something he had never known he needed. "You're thinking again," Lyra said softly, her voice breaking the silence. Ethan turned to face her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I can't help it. I've always been the one to think things through, to keep everything in control. But now, it feels like I'm losing control." Lyra's eyes softened, and she stepped closer to him. "You're not losing control, Ethan. You're just allowing yourself to feel. And that's not something to fear." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of his words. "It's not just about me, though. The crew, they've noticed. They've been asking questions, and the mission isn't over yet. There's still so much I need to do." Lyra reached out, her hand resting on his arm. "I know what you're feeling, but you don't have to carry it all by yourself. You don't have to choose between the mission and your heart. Both can exist together, but you have to be true to yourself." He looked down at her hand on his arm, the simple touch grounding him. He had spent so long trying to please others, to meet their expectations, to live up to a standard he had set for himself. But now, for the first time, he realized that he didn't have to do it all alone. He had Lyra, and he had himself. "I've spent so much time hiding from my feelings," Ethan admitted, his voice quiet. "I didn't think I had the right to feel them. But now, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with them." Lyra smiled, her gaze steady and calm. "You don't have to do anything with them, Ethan. Just let them be. Embrace them. They are a part of who you are, and they don't make you weaker. They make you stronger." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, taking in her words. He had spent so much of his life pushing aside his emotions, thinking they would make him weak. But now, in this quiet moment with Lyra, he realized that his emotions didn't define his weakness, they defined his strength. He opened his eyes, looking into Lyra's gaze. "I don't want to lose you," he said, the words coming out more strongly than he had intended. Lyra's eyes softened even further, and she took his hand in hers. "You won't lose me, Ethan. I'm here, with you. Whatever you choose, I'll be by your side." The simple reassurance, the quiet promise in her words, gave Ethan the strength he needed. He had been so afraid of losing control, of losing everything he had worked for. But in that moment, he understood something. He didn't have to lose anything. He could have both the mission and his connection with Lyra. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I've always been afraid of making the wrong choice, but I think I'm ready to make the right one." Lyra's smile deepened, and she gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "Then you're ready, Ethan. You don't need to be afraid of the future. You just need to trust yourself." Ethan nodded, the weight on his chest lightening. He wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time, he felt like he was ready to face it. He didn't need to have everything figured out, and that was okay. He had Lyra by his side, and he had his own strength to rely on as the night stretched on. Ethan knew that he would have to make decisions, that the path ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but he also knew that he didn't have to face it alone. His crew, his mission, and his heart, he could balance them all, but only if he was true to himself. "I'll stay," Ethan said, his voice firm now. "I'll stay with you, Lyra. I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Together." Lyra's smile was like the first light of dawn, warm and full of hope. "Together," she echoed softly. The air between them seemed to shift, and in that moment, Ethan felt something deep within him settle. It wasn't a perfect solution, and there would still be challenges ahead, but he knew one thing for sure. He had made the right choice. He had chosen himself, and he had chosen Lyra, and that was enough. As they stood together, watching the stars above, Ethan realized that the future was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace, something to shape with every decision, every step forward. And whatever came next, he would face it with Lyra by his side. The journey ahead wasn't certain, but for the first time, Ethan felt ready to walk it not as a captain, not as a leader, but as a man who had learned to trust his heart.